a starship forgotten by all, rebuilt by one human mechanic into the deadliest weapon. He did not just see broken pieces of metal. He saw stories waiting to be told, machines waiting to live again. In the endless expanse of derelict ships and abandoned stations, he felt at home. Most humans had left this sector long ago, leaving only rumors of the ghost ships that drifted in silence. But Kale stayed, alone, among the forgotten giants of a bygone era. His current target was the Eclipse. At least, that's what the faded markings on the hull suggested. Kale had stumbled across its coordinates while studying old star maps and fragments of Imperial records. The ship was a legend, whispered about in the old days. Some said it was the fastest warship ever built. Others said its weapons could destroy entire fleets. And then it vanished, abandoned, as though the galaxy had simply forgotten it existed. Kale's small salvage ship, the Harbinger, drifted alongside the Eclipse like a tiny insect beside a giant. Its hull was scarred and rusted, and a thick layer of cosmic dust covered its surfaces. The engines were missing, doors hung loosely on broken hinges, and the control tower was cracked in half. To anyone else, it was just another wreck. But Kale's heart raced with excitement. He floated in his magnetic boots across the hull, inspecting panels and systems. Each one hummed with the faint echo of life, a reminder of what the ship once had. Kale ran his fingers along a console labeled in a language long forgotten. Some symbols glowed faintly, a hint that power still lingered in hidden corners. "This is it," he whispered to himself. "This is the one." Inside the main hangar, dust motes danced in the weak light from his flashlight. Broken droids and ruined cargo pods littered the floor. Kale crouched over a rusted crate, opening it carefully. Inside were the remains of a Starship drone, its circuits fried but mostly intact. He took a small tool kit from his pack and began salvaging parts. Every screw, every wire, every microchip could help him later. Hours passed, but Kale hardly noticed. Time had no meaning here among the ghosts of the past. The silence was almost sacred, broken only by the soft hiss of the ship's old life support systems. Then he heard it, a low creak from above. He froze. In these sectors, he had learned never to assume he was alone. Scavenger gangs often patrolled, seeking easy prey. Kale's heart beat faster, but he stayed calm, blending with the shadows. A shadow moved across the wall. Kale held his breath and watched. A group of 3 humans armed with makeshift rifles entered the hangar. They were young, reckless, and unaware of what they had stumbled into. Kale studied them carefully. He could fight them, but that would risk the ship. No, he had to be smarter. He ducked behind a cargo container and activated a small holographic decoy, projecting an image of himself floating in the hangar entrance. The gang approached, aiming at the figure. Kale seized the moment, and with a careful push, he released a gravity pulse from a small device he had modified. The floor tilted slightly, throwing the gang off balance. They cursed and scrambled, but Kale was already climbing to the catwalk above. From above, he watched as they argued, confused by the subtle trick. Kale smiled. Humans might be clever, but so was he. This encounter reminded him of why he worked alone. No one else could understand the patience, the care, and the knowledge required to bring something like the Eclipse back to life. After the danger passed, Kale returned to his work. He found a sealed maintenance bay and pried open its door. Inside were stacks of old blueprints detailing the ship's engines, weapon systems, and navigation modules. Kale studied them with fascination. The Eclipse had been ahead of its time, designed for speed, stealth, and endurance. But the most remarkable thing was how modular it was. Parts could be swapped, upgraded, and improved. Kale's mind raced. He imagined the ship restored, not just repaired, but enhanced. He envisioned systems no one had dreamed of, engines that could adjust power output to slip past sensors, shields that could adapt to enemy attacks, and drones that could repair the ship while it flew. He could do it. He had to do it. But first, he needed supplies. The outer rim was not kind to lone scavengers. He had credits, but not enough to buy rare components. Kale would have to take risks, salvage from other wrecks, negotiate with smugglers, and even sneak into restricted sectors. He would do what no one else dared. He would rebuild the Eclipse, and the galaxy would remember it again. As Kale prepared to leave the ship temporarily, he felt a strange pulse under his feet. The Eclipse was alive in some small way, responding to his presence. He knelt and placed his hand on the cold metal. "I'll bring you back," he said softly. "I promise." For a moment it felt as if the ship had answered, a faint hum vibrating through the hull. His journey back to the Harbinger was tense. Every shadow seemed to move, every sound was amplified. The scavenger gangs in this sector were persistent. As he approached his small ship, Kale noticed something strange. A sensor ping, faint but noticeable, moving toward the Eclipse. Another scavenger, or worse. Kale activated his ship's cloaking field and slipped inside undetected. From the cockpit of the Harbinger, Kale watched the Eclipse as the sensor faded into the distance. He felt a mix of excitement and fear. Rebuilding the ship would not be easy. Many had tried to claim it and failed. The galaxy had forgotten it for a reason. But Kale was not like the others. He had vision, skill, and something even the most powerful factions lacked: patience. He set a course for a nearby asteroid field, his hidden workshop. Among jagged rocks and the silent shadows of drifting ice, Kale's ship was safe. Here, no one could reach him, and he could begin the long task of restoration. Every day would be a challenge, every night filled with calculations, welding, and improvisation. But Kale welcomed it. He was a human, after all. Humans thrived in impossible situations, in challenges others called hopeless. That night, Kale sat in his small cabin, staring at a holographic projection of the Eclipse. He traced the lines of its hull, imagining the ship alive again, gliding through the stars. A small smile formed on his face. The galaxy might have forgotten the Eclipse, but he would not. Not now, not ever. Kale drifted off to sleep, dreaming of engines that roared silently, shields that shimmered like light itself, and a ship that would change the balance of the galaxy. Tomorrow he would begin. Tomorrow, the forgotten Starship would remember the touch of human hands and human ingenuity. The asteroid field stretched endlessly, jagged rocks floating like frozen mountains in the darkness of space. Kale Arden maneuvered the Harbinger carefully, weaving through narrow corridors of stone to reach his hidden workshop. The small facility was carved into the side of a massive asteroid, with shields and decoys masking its presence from sensors. Here, Kale could work without interference, and for the next several months he would need every moment in peace. The Eclipse waited silently, a sleeping giant, its hull battered but intact. Kale stared at it for a long moment, imagining it moving again, engines glowing, systems humming with life. He had studied every blueprint he could find, piecing together fragments from old databanks, scavenger reports, and his own knowledge. Still, the ship's ancient technology posed challenges. Much of it was incompatible with anything modern, and Kale had to invent solutions where none existed. He began with the engines. The Eclipse's original thrusters had been dismantled long ago, and the remaining cores were corroded and unusable. Kale climbed into the engine bay, tools strapped to his belt. The old machinery groaned as he tested it, each movement careful to avoid damaging what could be salvaged. He had to combine human ingenuity with fragments of alien tech he had scavenged over the years. Tiny, precise adjustments turned the broken engines into a framework for something greater. Kale worked day and night, rarely sleeping. He built new plasma conduits, reinforced the engine housings, and created an energy system that could self-regulate. The original design had been powerful, yes, but rigid. Kale's version would adapt to changing conditions, adjusting output automatically to conserve fuel or maximize speed. The ship would be faster than anyone remembered, but smarter too. In the midst of his work, Kale received a delivery from a small trader he had befriended. Crates of rare metals, microprocessors, and energy cores arrived under strict secrecy. Kale unwrapped them with care, examining each piece. "This is going to be something no one expects," he muttered, almost to himself. The human ability to adapt and improve on old ideas had always amazed him. Now he had the chance to apply it on the greatest scale imaginable. While rebuilding the engines, Kale also turned his attention to the ship's internal systems. Navigation, communications, and defensive networks had long been offline. Kale carefully disassembled old modules, replacing circuits with compact, self-repairing units. He designed software capable of learning from attacks and adapting accordingly. Where the original Eclipse had been limited by human programming, Kale's ship would be able to respond dynamically, anticipating threats before they arrived. It was during these quiet nights, alone in the asteroid field, that Kale realized something extraordinary. The Eclipse was responding. Small lights flickered on panels without explanation, sensors hummed faintly, and the ship seemed almost alive. Kale smiled. He had read about engineers who felt connected to their machines, but this was more than that. It was as if the Eclipse recognized his touch, his care, and his understanding. Not everything went smoothly. One day, as Kale attempted to test a prototype shield system, a minor energy surge overloaded a conduit. Sparks flew, and a faint alarm echoed through the ship. Kale jumped back, his heart racing. "Patience," he whispered. "Patience is everything." With careful hands, he repaired the damage, rerouted power, and retested the system. Each failure taught him something new, and he began to see the Eclipse not as a broken machine, but as a puzzle he was born to solve. Kale's work was not limited to engineering. He also upgraded the ship's defensive capabilities. The Eclipse had once been armed with traditional weaponry, but Kale wanted more subtle options. He designed systems that could disable enemy sensors, create holographic decoys, and deploy automated drones that repaired the ship in real time. He called them nanoforges, miniature machines that moved through the hull like tiny ghosts, fixing damage almost as fast as it occurred. Word began to spread, slowly and quietly, across the outer rim. Other scavengers and traders spoke in whispers of the lone human rebuilding a forgotten warship. Some thought it was a hoax, a rumor created to scare rival gangs. Others were intrigued. Kale did not advertise his work, but the galaxy has a way of noticing remarkable things, even when someone tries to hide. Months passed. Kale's body ached from long hours, and his sleep was often broken. Yet every morning he returned to the Eclipse with renewed energy. He had begun to see the ship as more than metal and circuitry. It was a partner, a vessel that reflected his own skills and creativity. Slowly, the sleeping giant stirred. Panels lit up, engines hummed faintly, and the first test of the adaptive shield succeeded beyond expectation. Kale allowed himself a rare moment of triumph. He had taken a forgotten relic and turned it into a machine capable of reshaping the galaxy's balance. One evening, Kale decided it was time to test the ship's engines. The asteroid field was risky but necessary. He climbed into the cockpit, his hands steady on the controls. The engines roared to life, not with violence but with precise, controlled energy. Lights shimmered along the hull and the ship lifted smoothly, hovering above the rocky surface. Kale grinned. He had done it. The Eclipse was moving again, but movement invited attention. Sensors on the Harbinger picked up signals, ships scanning the sector, likely drawn by the reactivation of a massive starship. Kale's pulse quickened. The galaxy would not remain unaware for long. He activated the Eclipse's stealth systems, cloaking it with layers of adaptive energy shields and decoys. Even the most advanced sensors could not detect it. Kale had ensured that the ship's first steps in its new life would be unseen. During this period, Kale also focused on long-term upgrades. He designed navigation systems capable of mapping uncharted sectors, engines that could manipulate gravitational fields to gain speed, and AI modules that could predict enemy tactics. Every system was a triumph of human ingenuity. Where alien races relied on brute force or rigid programming, Kale's designs embraced flexibility, creativity, and intuition. He spent hours at the observation deck, staring at the stars. The galaxy was vast, filled with factions, conflicts, and forgotten legends. Kale knew that eventually someone would come for the eclipse, either to claim it or destroy it. But he was ready. He was not a soldier or a conqueror. He was a human mechanic, and humans have a way of surviving and thriving where others fail. As the weeks turned into months, the eclipse neared completion. The final systems were integrated. The stealth drives aligned perfectly with the engines, drones could repair the hull autonomously, and the AI assistant Kale had programmed could manage navigation, defense, and energy distribution simultaneously. Kale tested each system with meticulous care, celebrating small successes and correcting minor errors. The ship was no longer just restored, it was enhanced beyond its original design. Kale named the AI Lyra. She was more than a computer program. She was a companion, a collaborator. Lyra learned quickly, adapting to Kale's strategies and suggesting improvements he had not considered. Together, human and machine, they pushed the eclipse beyond what anyone thought possible. One night, as Kale reviewed energy outputs in the control room, Lyra spoke in her calm, melodic voice. "Kale, all primary systems are operational. The eclipse is ready for its first extended flight." Kale leaned back in his chair, exhaustion and excitement mixing in his mind. "Ready, huh? Not just for flight, but for the galaxy," he replied softly. He looked out through the cockpit window at the distant stars. Soon, the world beyond this asteroid field would see the eclipse again. Soon, humanity would show that even a single human, with enough skill and determination, could rebuild a legend. He spent the rest of the night making final adjustments. The eclipse's sensors were tuned to detect threats before they arrived, its engines calibrated for maximum efficiency, and its drones prepared for any emergency. Kale even installed subtle countermeasures, small tricks that could give him an edge over any opponent without resorting to outright violence. By dawn, the eclipse gleamed faintly under the dim light of the asteroid field, a massive silhouette of metal and energy. Kale stood on the observation deck, his tools in hand, surveying the culmination of months of tireless work. He had taken a forgotten starship and given it new life. He had combined human intuition with skill, patience, and creativity to create something that could rival the most powerful vessels in the galaxy. And yet, Kale knew this was only the beginning. The outer rim was just the first step. Beyond the asteroid field lay a galaxy that had underestimated humans for too long. The eclipse would prove what a single human, armed with ingenuity and determination, could accomplish. Kale's eyes gleamed with purpose. The ship was ready. And so was he. The eclipse hovered silently among the jagged rocks of the asteroid field, its hull gleaming faintly under the distant light of a dying sun. Kale Arden sat in the cockpit, his hands steady on the controls, eyes focused on the star map projected before him. Months of labor had led to this moment. The ship was no longer a relic of the past. It was alive, adaptive, and intelligent. Its engines hummed like a purring beast, and its AI companion, Lyra, scanned the surrounding space for threats and anomalies. "This is it, Lyra," Kale said quietly. "The first real test. Let's see what you've got." "Understood," Lyra replied, her voice calm and steady. "All systems report optimal performance. Sensors indicate no immediate threats, but I am detecting multiple signal pings from nearby sectors. Likely curious scouts or scavengers. Shall I engage stealth protocols?" Kale smiled. "Already activated. Let's move." With a gentle push of the throttle, the Eclipse glided through the asteroid field. Its engines were smooth, almost silent, and its adaptive shields shimmered faintly as they adjusted to the light and radiation of nearby stars. Kale had spent months refining these systems, and now he felt the fruits of his labor. Every movement was precise, every system responsive, every calculation perfect. But he knew better than to assume safety. The Outer Rim was home to pirates, scavengers, and rogue factions who saw a lone starship as an opportunity. Kale had already prepared for that. The Eclipse was equipped with drones, holographic decoys, and adaptive energy shields capable of withstanding far more than its small frame suggested. He was not just going to survive, he was going to prove the strength of human ingenuity. The first challenge arrived sooner than expected. A group of small, fast ships appeared on the sensors, moving in a tight formation toward the Eclipse. Kale recognized them as scavenger drones, automated vessels often used by gangs to capture or disable large targets. They were armed with energy nets and EMP disruptors designed to immobilize ships without destroying them. Kale's pulse quickened, but he remained calm. "Lyra," he said, "let's play." "Understood," she replied, deploying decoy drones and activating adaptive shields. As the scavenger drones approached, the Eclipse's own drones moved silently into position. They emitted holographic images of the ship, multiplying its apparent size across the battlefield. The scavengers fired nets and EMP pulses, aiming for the ship's hull. But the decoys intercepted most of the attacks, while the adaptive shields absorbed and redirected the energy harmlessly into the ship's systems. Kale guided the Eclipse with fluid movements, weaving through the asteroids while keeping the drones active. The scavengers, confused by the illusions, collided with one another or became trapped in their own nets. Kale allowed a small smile to escape. "Not bad for a first day in space, huh, Lyra?" "Efficiency at 87%, Lyra replied. "We have avoided all damage and neutralized 6 adversaries." Kale's eyes scanned the stars. He knew the galaxy would notice soon enough. A single human piloting a rebuilt warship in the Outer Rim was not something any faction could ignore. The Eclipse had to perform flawlessly, and so far it had. After the encounter, Kale decided to test the ship's speed. He set a course toward a nearby uncharted sector, a region filled with dense asteroid fields and gravitational anomalies. The original Eclipse had been fast, yes, but Kale's enhancements promised something far greater. He pushed the engines to half capacity first, feeling the ship respond instantly. Then, gradually, he increased power. The Eclipse accelerated smoothly, weaving through asteroids with a precision no autopilot could match. "Lyra, maximum safe speed," Kale commanded. The ship surged forward, energy shields shimmering as the hull adapted to the stress. Kale felt a thrill unlike any other, a mix of fear, excitement, and pride. The Eclipse moved as if it had a mind of its own, responding to his commands before he even finished them. Months of hard work had forged a partnership between human and machine, one that no other ship or crew could replicate. Their first true test came when the sensors picked up a massive energy signature. Kale frowned. "Lyra, scan and identify." "Unknown vessel," she replied. "Large, heavily armored, approaching at high speed, likely a scout from the Inner Coalition. Estimated interception in 6 minutes." Kale's heart beat faster. The Inner Coalition was one of the galaxy's major powers. Their scouts were advanced, their weapons precise. He had no desire for open combat, but he needed to prove the Eclipse's capabilities and his own. "Lyra, prepare countermeasures. We're not fighting, we're outsmarting them." "Understood." Deploying holographic decoys, activating stealth modulation, and preparing gravitational field manipulation. As the massive scout ship emerged from hyperspace, Kale executed his plan. The Eclipse split its image into dozens of holograms, each moving independently. The scout's sensors became overwhelmed, unable to distinguish the real ship from illusions. Kale guided the Eclipse silently through a narrow cluster of asteroids, while small drones subtly shifted gravitational fields, making the scout's trajectory unstable. The Coalition scout fired several warning pulses, hoping to disable the ship. Each one bounced harmlessly off the adaptive shields or was absorbed by the decoy systems. Kale's calm focus allowed him to maneuver the Eclipse with precision, guiding it past the scout without a single scratch. By the time the Coalition vessel realized the human pilot had escaped, the Eclipse was gone, leaving only confusion in its wake. Kale exhaled slowly. "That's what I'm talking about. Mission success," Lyra replied. "No damage sustained, enemy unable to identify the ship's true position." The experience filled Kale with confidence. The Eclipse was no longer just a ship. It was a symbol of human ingenuity, a testament to what a single person could achieve with skill and determination. He had rebuilt a legend, and now he was proving its worth. Over the next few days, Kale tested more systems. He navigated through asteroid fields, dodged sensor sweeps, and evaded small pirate patrols, each encounter teaching him something new. The drones repaired minor hull damage automatically, shields adapted to different types of energy, and the AI learned to anticipate both environmental hazards and enemy maneuvers. Each trial was an affirmation of human creativity. Kale realized that while other species relied on numbers or sheer force, humans thrived on adaptability, problem-solving, and innovation. The galaxy might have underestimated him, but his success in the asteroid fields proved that one human could rival entire fleets. One evening, while resting in the observation deck, Kale noticed a faint pattern in the sensor data. Small, rapid signals moving in formation, another scout group but faster, smarter. Kale's mind raced. They've adapted. Someone knows something's out here. "Lyra, plot evasive maneuvers and prepare holographic diversions," Kale commanded. The Eclipse responded instantly, its systems humming with calculated precision. As the new scouts approached, they were met with dozens of false targets, all moving independently. Drones adjusted gravitational fields subtly, making the scouts drift off course. Kale guided the ship through a narrow asteroid corridor, a path only he could navigate with confidence. By the time the scouts realized the human pilot had outmaneuvered them, the Eclipse was gone again, leaving no trace behind. Kale allowed himself a small, triumphant laugh. The galaxy had underestimated humans, and it would continue to do so, until they realized that Kale Arden and the Eclipse were no ordinary forces. The first trial complete, Kale took a moment to reflect. The ship had proven itself in speed, stealth, and intelligence. He had tested the drones, shields, and engines under real conditions. The galaxy would soon learn that the Eclipse was more than a ship. It was a weapon, not of brute force, but of brilliance. Kale looked out at the stars, thinking about what lay ahead. Beyond the asteroid field, the wider galaxy awaited, filled with factions who would either challenge or fear him. But he was ready. The Eclipse was ready. Together, they would show the universe that humans, even one human, could achieve what no one else imagined possible. As the first trial concluded, Kale made a simple note in his log: "The ship survives. The human prevails. The galaxy will remember." And with that, the Eclipse moved silently through the outer rim, a ghost in the darkness, a symbol of what one determined human could achieve. The galaxy beyond the outer rim was alive with movement. Trade convoys, patrol ships, and distant colonies filled the void with faint signals and glimmers of light. Kale Arden sat in the cockpit of the Eclipse, his hands resting lightly on the controls, his eyes scanning the stars. Months of work had brought him here. The ship was complete, the systems perfected, and its capabilities unmatched. Now it was time to test its full potential in the real galaxy. "Lyra, status report," Kale said. "All systems operational," Lyra replied. Stealth protocols functional. Drones, shields, engines, and AI systems performing at optimal levels. Enemy detection sensors indicate multiple vessels approaching central trade routes. They may be coalition scouts or pirates. Kale nodded. Then we make our move. Let's show them what a human can do. The first contact came sooner than he expected. A convoy of massive freighters protected by armed escort ships appeared on sensors. The escorts had advanced weapons, far more powerful than any pirate drones, and they moved with disciplined coordination. Kale's pulse quickened. These were no ordinary targets. These were trained professionals, humans and aliens alike, who had underestimated the outer rim for too long. Lyra, Kale said, we're not attacking. Our goal is to test. We need observation, control, and if possible, intimidation. We need them to understand the ship's power without unnecessary damage. Understood, Lyra replied. Deploying decoy fleet, activating stealth, and preparing non-lethal countermeasures. The Eclipse moved with ghost-like precision, weaving between the freighter's sensors. Holographic images projected dozens of copies of the ship, creating confusion. The escort ships fired warning beams, energy pulses designed to disable unknown vessels. The Eclipse avoided each strike, adapting in real time to the patterns of attack. Kale's hands guided the ship with ease, responding to changes before they fully manifested. The freighters and escorts were bewildered. They detected the Eclipse, then it disappeared. They fired at decoys, then real targets, only to find themselves constantly outmaneuvered. Kale guided the ship through a series of tight maneuvers around asteroids and nebulae, each movement calculated to show strength without destruction. It was a dance of intelligence and precision, a demonstration of human ingenuity at its finest. As the convoy tried to regroup, Kale activated the Eclipse's nanoforges. Tiny drones moved across the hull, repairing any minor stress from evasive maneuvers. Simultaneously, Lyra deployed subtle energy pulses, creating invisible force fields that redirected the convoy's sensors. The escorts could not track the ship effectively, their weapons rendered useless by Kale's clever adaptations. This is incredible, Kale muttered, watching the freighter's confusion. They have no idea what they're up against. Hours passed as Kale tested the ship in the galaxy's central routes. He navigated asteroid belts, gravitational anomalies, and dense nebulae, each time using strategy over force to overcome obstacles. Every encounter reinforced one truth: the Eclipse was not just a starship, it was a testament to human creativity, adaptability, and resilience. Then, a transmission came through. A coalition commander's voice, calm but commanding, spoke over the comms. "Unknown vessel," the commander said, "you are detected in restricted space. Identify yourself and prepare for inspection." Kale leaned back in his chair. The galaxy was noticing. "Lyra," he said, "let's answer them, politely but firmly." "Understood," Lyra replied. A holographic projection appeared in front of Kale, displaying the commander's face. Kale tapped a few commands, his voice calm and confident. "This is Kale Arden, human. You are looking at the Eclipse, a ship restored and enhanced. I mean no harm, but understand this. Humanity is capable of far more than you realize. Underestimating us would be a mistake." There was a pause. Then the commander spoke again, more cautiously. "We have heard rumors, but this is impossible." "How can a single human rebuild such a ship?" Kale smiled. "Not impossible, just human." The message spread quickly through coalition channels. Rumors of a ghost ship, rebuilt and unmatched, sparked fear, curiosity, and respect. Kale had accomplished more than he anticipated. The galaxy now knew that humans were not just observers, not just laborers or minor players. Humans were creators, innovators, and problem solvers, capable of feats no one else could achieve. Over the next days, Kale continued his journey, testing the Eclipse against increasingly challenging scenarios. He navigated through pirate-infested sectors, avoiding capture not through raw force but by outthinking his pursuers. He intercepted smuggler convoys, not to destroy them, but to demonstrate the ship's capabilities, leaving the adversaries bewildered and impressed. At one point, a group of armed alien ships attempted to block the Eclipse's path. Kale studied their formation carefully. Using Lyra's calculations, he projected dozens of decoy ships, each moving with slight variations to confuse sensors. Then he used gravitational manipulation, subtly shifting asteroid positions to create hazards that forced the aliens to scatter. Not a single shot was fired directly at an enemy ship, yet Kale had neutralized the threat completely. "This is it, Lyra," Kale said. "The galaxy is learning. One human, one ship, and an idea can change everything." Lyra's voice was calm but tinged with what almost sounded like pride. "Data confirms. Human strategy and ship design outperform numerical superiority in all trials. The galaxy's response is consistent with respect, caution, and fear." Kale leaned back, watching the stars drift past. He realized that the Eclipse was more than a ship, more than a weapon. It was a message. Humanity would no longer be ignored. The galaxy had underestimated what a single human could achieve, and Kale intended to make sure that lesson was remembered. Weeks passed, and Kale continued his journey, visiting critical trade routes, uncharted sectors, and strategic points. Each encounter reinforced the same truth. Humans were underestimated, but ingenuity and determination could overcome even the most overwhelming odds. The Eclipse became a legend in its own right, whispered about in trade hubs, feared by pirates, and carefully monitored by coalition forces. Kale also took time to improve the ship further. He enhanced stealth modules, refined energy systems, and upgraded the drones. Each addition was tested meticulously, every change recorded. The Eclipse was no longer just restored, it was perfected, an extension of human skill and intellect. One day, while traveling through a dense nebula, Kale intercepted a distress signal from a human colony under threat from a rogue faction. Without hesitation, he set a course to assist. The Eclipse moved silently, invisible to sensors, its systems preparing for any engagement. When Kale arrived, the rogue faction attempted to intimidate him with sheer numbers. Kale smiled. Numbers mean nothing when brains and skill are involved. Using a combination of holograms, drones, and subtle energy fields, Kale neutralized the threat without firing a single destructive shot. The colony was safe, and the rogues left in confusion, unwilling to challenge a human who could outthink them at every turn. Word of Kale's intervention spread quickly, adding to his growing reputation. By now, the Eclipse was not just a ship, it was a symbol of what humans could achieve when underestimated, when given space to innovate, and when guided by ingenuity and courage. Kale had rebuilt more than a ship. He had rebuilt respect for an entire species. At the end of the journey, Kale paused in the cockpit, looking out at the vast galaxy. He had tested the ship, proven its capabilities, and demonstrated humanity's brilliance. Yet he knew this was only the beginning. Other factions would continue to test him, to challenge him, but Kale was ready. With the Eclipse at his command, he had rewritten the rules of the galaxy, not through violence, but through intelligence, skill, and perseverance. "Lyra," he said softly, "we did it. They know now. Humans are not to be underestimated." "Confirmation received," Lyra replied. "The galaxy has taken notice. Humans are now recognized as innovators, problem solvers, and formidable strategists." Kale smiled, leaning back in his chair. The Eclipse glowed faintly around him, alive and responsive. He had taken a forgotten starship, rebuilt it with his own hands, and transformed it into a force the galaxy could not ignore. One human had changed the perception of an entire species. The stars stretched endlessly before him, full of challenges, opportunities, and possibilities. Kale Arden and the Eclipse would navigate them all, proving that humans, Even a single human could achieve the impossible. The galaxy had forgotten the eclipse once, but thanks to Kale, it would never forget again.